Carmen Reyes stood in room 1847 of the Grand Obsidian Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada, her cleaning cart blocking the doorway, staring at the blood-stained silk tie draped over the bathroom sink. In 72 hours, this 41-year-old immigrant mother of two would either save an innocent woman's life or become the prime suspect in a conspiracy that reached the penthouse suites of America's wealthiest elite. The tie wasn't supposed to be there. The guest in 1847, a Mr. Garrett Ashworth, registered under corporate account, had checked out that morning. But Carmen had cleaned enough crime scenes in her 20 years of hotel work to recognize what dried blood looked like on expensive fabric. What she was about to discover in the heating vent above that bathroom would expose a murder plot orchestrated by people who believed that housekeepers were invisible, forgettable, and most importantly, silent. This is the true story of how one woman's refusal to look away brought down a network of killers hiding in plain sight, and why the FBI would later call her testimony the most crucial evidence we've ever received from a civilian. Before we dive into this intense story about courage, injustice, and one woman's fight against a system designed to silence her, hit that subscribe button right now. If you love true stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, you're in the right place. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and let's get into it. Meet Carmen Reyes, a 41-year-old housekeeping supervisor at the Grand Obsidian Hotel on the Las Vegas Strip. Carmen had been cleaning hotel rooms since she was 21, working her way up from entry-level maid to floor supervisor through sheer persistence and an attention to detail that management loved to exploit but rarely acknowledged. Carmen had immigrated to the United States from Guadalajara, Mexico at 19, with nothing but a 7th-grade education and a fierce determination to build a better life. Now, 22 years later, she lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Henderson with her 2 kids, Diego, 16, and Lucia, 13. Her husband, Rafael, worked construction. Between them, they made just enough to cover rent, utilities, and the kids' school supplies. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., Carmen would kiss her sleeping children, leave breakfast prepared on the counter, and take 2 buses to reach the Grand Obsidian by 7. She supervised a team of 12 housekeepers responsible for cleaning 300 rooms across floors 18 through 22, the hotel's luxury suites, where rooms started at $800 per night. Carmen was good at her job, obsessively good. She could spot a stain on a pillowcase from across a room, knew exactly how to fold towels so they looked like origami sculptures, and had memorized the preferences of regular guests who stayed in the luxury floors. She knew which executives wanted extra pillows, which ones left generous tips, and which ones treated housekeepers like they were part of the furniture. She wasn't chasing the American dream anymore. She was just trying to survive it. Her goals were simple: keep her job, keep her kids in school, and maybe, just maybe, save enough for Diego's community college tuition. But on the morning of September 23, 2019, everything changed. Carmen was doing her second sweep of the 18th floor, a routine quality check after her team had finished their morning assignments. Room 1847 had been marked as checked out by the front desk, cleaned by Maria, one of her newest employees, and cleared for the next guest. But something was wrong. Carmen noticed it the moment she opened the door. The bathroom light was on. Maria never left lights on. Carmen had trained her team too well for that. And there was a smell. Not the usual smell of cleaning products and fresh linens, but something metallic and faint, like old pennies left in the sun. She stepped into the marble bathroom, and that's when she saw it. A silk tie, expensive, Tom Ford if Carmen had to guess from the pattern, draped over the edge of the sink. The end of it was stiff and darkened with what looked like dried blood. Carmen's heart began to pound. In 20 years of hotel work, she'd seen a lot. She'd found drugs, weapons, evidence of affairs, stolen property. Once, she'd found a dead body, a guest who died of a heart attack in his sleep. But blood on a tie, deliberately left behind after checkout, hidden just enough that most housekeepers wouldn't notice? That was different. Carmen's first instinct was to report it to her supervisor, but her supervisor, a white woman named Phyllis Brennan, who'd held the housekeeping manager position for 8 years, had made it clear what happened to employees who created problems. "We're in the hospitality business, Carmen," Phyllis had told her 6 months earlier when Carmen reported finding cocaine residue in a VIP suite. "Our guests expect discretion. If you can't provide discretion, we can find someone who will." The cocaine incident had been swept under the rug. No police, no report, nothing. The guest, a minor celebrity whose name Carmen never learned, had checked out the next morning without consequence. But this felt different. This felt dangerous. Carmen took out her phone, a cheap Android she'd bought refurbished, and took 3 photos of the tie. Then she carefully picked it up using the edge of her cleaning glove, examining it more closely. The blood was definitely blood, and there was something else, a small, barely visible monogram embroidered on the underside of the tie's narrow end, the initials G.A. Garrett Ashworth, the guest who'd checked out that morning. Carmen's mind raced. Why would someone leave a blood-stained tie behind? Was it a mistake? Was it intentional? And whose blood was it? She was about to leave the bathroom when something caught her eye. The heating vent above the sink was slightly ajar, hanging at an odd angle as if someone had opened it and failed to close it properly. Carmen had cleaned this room dozens of times. That vent was never open. She dragged the bathroom's decorative ottoman over to the sink, carefully climbed up, her 41-year-old knees protesting, and reached up to the vent. Her fingers touched the metal grate, and it swung open easily, revealing the dark shaft beyond. Inside the vent, tucked just out of sight, was a black leather notebook. She pulled it out, her hands shaking now. The notebook was expensive, bound in leather with gold-edged pages, the kind of thing that cost more Carmen Maid in a week. She opened it. Inside were pages and pages of handwritten notes, names, dates, amounts of money, and photographs, printed photos tucked between the pages like bookmarks. Carmen's English wasn't perfect, but it was good enough to understand what she was looking at. This wasn't a diary. This was evidence. Evidence of what looked like payments, transactions, meetings, and in the photos, men in suits, women in evening gowns, the kinds of people Carmen saw checking into the Grand Obsidian's penthouses, people with money, with power, with the kinds of faces you sometimes recognized from television. And then Carmen saw a name that made her blood cold: Vanessa Montgomery. Beside the name was a date, September 26th, 3 days from now, and beside the date, written in red ink, final payment. Carmen didn't know who Vanessa Montgomery was, but something in her gut, the same instinct that had kept her alive and employed for 20 years in a city that ate people like her for breakfast, told her that final payment wasn't about money. It was about something much worse. What Carmen didn't know was that Vanessa Montgomery was a 28-year-old investigative journalist with the Las Vegas Sun who had spent the past year investigating a human trafficking ring operating out of several luxury hotels on the Strip. Vanessa had gotten too close, asked too many questions, and now she had become a problem that needed to be eliminated. And the man who'd checked out of room 1847 that morning, Garrett Ashworth, was a fixer, a cleaner, someone hired by very wealthy, very powerful people to make problems disappear. Carmen stood in that bathroom holding evidence of a planned murder and faced an impossible choice. She could put everything back, pretend she never saw it, and go back to her life, her safe, predictable, underpaid life where she kept her head down and her mouth shut. Or she could do something about it. The problem was that doing something meant trusting a system that had never trusted her. It meant going to authorities who might not believe a housekeeper with broken English over the word of wealthy hotel guests. It meant risking her job, her family's stability, maybe even her safety. Carmen thought about her children, Diego, who wanted to be an engineer, Lucia, who dreamed of becoming a teacher. What kind of example would she set if she walked away from someone in danger just because it was easier, safer, more convenient? Carmen took a deep breath, carefully placed the notebook in her cleaning cart under a stack of fresh towels, and walked out of room 1847. What happened next would test every ounce of courage Carmen had and reveal just how deep the corruption ran at the Grand Obsidian Hotel. Carmen finished her shift at 3 p.m., but instead of taking the bus home, she walked 6 blocks to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department's Tourist District substation. The building was small, designed to handle drunk tourists and minor disputes, not major crimes. Carmen walked through the glass doors, her cleaning cart left behind at the hotel, her uniform still on, carrying the leather notebook in a plastic shopping bag. The officer at the front desk, a young white man who couldn't have been older than 25, looked up from his computer with barely disguised impatience. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone suggesting he'd rather not. "I need to report something," Carmen said, her accent thicker when she was nervous. "I found something at my work. I think someone is planning to hurt someone." The officer's expression shifted from impatient to skeptical. "What kind of something?" Carmen placed the plastic bag on the counter and carefully pulled out the notebook. "I found this, hidden, in a hotel room. There are names, dates, money, and a name with a date that says final payment. I think someone is going to hurt this person." The officer took the notebook, flipping through it with the casual disinterest of someone who'd seen every scam, delusion, and overreaction the Las Vegas Strip had to offer. "Ma'am, this looks like someone's personal business records. Where did you say you found this?" "In a heating vent, in a hotel room, after the guest checked out. There was also a tie with blood on it." "Did you bring the tie?" Carmen hesitated. "No, I left it there, but I took pictures." She pulled out her phone, showing him the photos. The officer looked at the images, then back at Carmen. His expression said everything. He thought she was wasting his time. "Ma'am, I appreciate you coming in, but without more context, this could be anything. The tie could be from a nosebleed. The notebook could be legitimate business records. Do you have any evidence that a crime has actually been committed?" "The date," Carmen insisted, pointing to Vanessa Montgomery's name in the notebook. "September 26th. That's 3 days from now. Final payment. That doesn't sound good, does it?" The officer sighed. "Look, I can file a report, but honestly, this isn't enough for us to investigate. If you're really concerned, you should report it to your hotel management, and they can follow their internal procedures." "I don't trust my hotel management," Carmen said quietly. "Then I don't know what to tell you." The officer slid the notebook back across the counter. "If you want to file an official report, I can take your statement, but I'm telling you right now, nothing's going to come of it. We need evidence of an actual crime, not speculation." Carmen felt something break inside her chest. She had known this would be difficult, but she hadn't expected to be dismissed so completely. "Can you at least look up the name, Vanessa Montgomery? See if there's anything about her?" The officer, perhaps sensing her desperation, turned to his computer and typed for a moment. His expression changed slightly. "Vanessa Montgomery is a reporter with the Las Vegas Sun. She's written some articles about trafficking and organized crime." He looked up at Carmen. "But that doesn't mean she's in danger. Reporters write about crime all the time." "Please," Carmen said, "just look into it. Contact her. Warn her." The officer's expression softened just a fraction. "I'll tell you what. I'll make a note in the system about your concerns. If anything happens, if Ms. Montgomery reports anything suspicious, this will be on record. That's the best I can do." It wasn't enough. Carmen knew it wasn't enough. But what else could she do? She took the notebook, thanked the officer, and walked out into the Las Vegas heat, feeling more alone than she had in years. That evening, back in her apartment in Henderson, Carmen couldn't eat, couldn't focus on her children's questions about her day, couldn't stop thinking about Vanessa Montgomery and the red ink marking her for death in 3 days. Raphael noticed. "What's wrong?" he asked after the kids had gone to bed. Carmen told him everything. Raphael's face went pale. "Carmen, you need to put that notebook back. You need to forget you saw it." "I can't." "You can and you will. Do you know what happens to people like us who get involved in things like this? We disappear. We get fired. We get hurt. These people," he gestured at the notebook on their kitchen table, "they have money, power, lawyers. We have nothing." "We have our conscience," Carmen said softly. "Our conscience doesn't feed our children." Raphael's voice was sharp with fear. "I know you want to help, but this isn't our fight. Call the police again, give them the notebook, and walk away." "I tried the police. They don't care." "Then there's nothing more you can do." But Carmen knew there was one more thing she could do. It was risky, possibly stupid, definitely dangerous. She could warn Vanessa Montgomery herself. The next morning, Carmen called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Phyllis was furious. They were short-staffed, and the hotel was fully booked, but Carmen didn't care. She took the bus to downtown Las Vegas, to the offices of the Las Vegas Sun. The newspaper occupied 3 floors of an aging office building that had seen better days. Carmen walked into the lobby, approached the receptionist, and asked to speak with Vanessa Montgomery. "Do you have an appointment?" the receptionist asked without looking up from her computer. "No, but it's important. It's about her investigation." That got the receptionist's attention. She picked up her phone, spoke quietly for a moment, then hung up. "What's your name?" "Carmen Reyes. Someone will be down in a minute." Carmen waited, her heart pounding, second-guessing everything. What if Vanessa thought she was crazy? What if this was all a misunderstanding? What if Carmen was about to destroy her own life over nothing? After 10 minutes that felt like an hour, a young woman emerged from the elevator. She was tall, blonde, wearing jeans and a blazer, with the kind of confident stride that Carmen associated with people who'd never been told they didn't belong somewhere. "Miss Reyes?" The woman extended her hand. "I'm Vanessa Montgomery. I understand you wanted to speak with me?" Carmen shook her hand, suddenly aware of how she must look, a middle-aged hotel maid in her day-off clothes, clutching a plastic bag, probably looking half crazy. "Can we talk somewhere private?" Carmen asked. Vanessa studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Sure, there's a coffee shop around the corner. Follow me." They walked to a small cafe, ordered coffee that Carmen couldn't afford but bought anyway, and sat in a corner booth away from other customers. "So," Vanessa said, pulling out a reporter's notebook, "what did you want to tell me?" Carmen took a breath and pulled out the leather notebook. "I found this yesterday at the Grand Obsidian Hotel. I'm a housekeeper there. A guest checked out and left this hidden in a heating vent. I think someone is planning to hurt you." Vanessa's expression shifted from polite curiosity to sharp attention. She took the notebook, opened it, and began reading. Carmen watched as Vanessa's face went pale, then flushed, then pale again. The reporter's hand started to shake slightly as she flipped through the pages. "Where exactly did you find this?" Vanessa asked, her voice suddenly urgent. "Room 1847. The guest was registered as Garrett Ashworth, corporate account. He checked out yesterday morning." Vanessa looked up, and Carmen saw real fear in her eyes for the first time. "Did anyone see you take this?" "No, I was alone." "Does anyone at the hotel know you have it?" "No. I went to the police first. They didn't believe me, so I came to you." Vanessa closed the notebook and leaned forward. "Miss Reyes, Carmen, do you understand what this is? Evidence? This is a ledger, a detailed accounting of payments made to silence witnesses, bribe officials, and—" she touched the page with Carmen's name— "eliminate threats. Garrett Ashworth is a contract killer, not the Hollywood kind, the corporate kind. He makes people disappear in ways that look like accidents, suicides, overdoses. And according to this, she tapped the page with her own name, I'm his next target. Carmen felt her stomach drop. So I was right. You were right, and you probably saved my life. Pause. But Carmen, by taking this and bringing it to me, you've put yourself in serious danger. If Ashworth realizes this is missing, he's going to come looking for it. And when he does, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Carmen felt the weight of her decision settle over her like a lead blanket. What do we do? We? Vanessa looked at her with surprise. Carmen, you've done more than enough. You should go home, pretend this never happened, and... I can't do that, Carmen interrupted. I found this. I brought it to you. If something happens now, it's because I got involved. I need to see this through. Vanessa studied her for a long moment. You have kids? 2, 16 and 13. Then you should walk away, for them. I'm doing this for them, Carmen said quietly. What kind of world am I leaving them if I teach them to look away when someone needs help? Vanessa's expression softened. You're either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both. Vanessa made a decision. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. I'm calling my editor and the police, the real police, not the tourist substation. This is FBI territory. Human trafficking, contract killing, interstate conspiracy. They'll want this evidence and they'll want statements from both of us. Will they protect us? Carmen asked. I don't know, Vanessa said honestly, but it's our best shot. Over the next 6 hours, Carmen gave the most detailed statement of her life to 2 FBI agents in a safe house on the outskirts of Las Vegas. She described finding the tie, the notebook, the photos. She gave them her phone with the pictures she'd taken. She provided the hotel's security footage access codes, her employee ID, everything they needed. The FBI agents, a woman named Special Agent Linda Kozlowski and a man named Special Agent James Nigwin, listened with the kind of intense focus that made Carmen feel for the first time like she was being taken seriously. Miss Reyes, Agent Kozlowski said when Carmen had finished, you've provided us with evidence that connects to 3 ongoing federal investigations. This notebook documents payments related to human trafficking, money laundering, and contract killing. Because of you, we can potentially close cases that have been open for years. What about Vanessa? Is she safe? We're placing Miss Montgomery in protective custody effective immediately, and we'd like to offer you the same protection, at least until we can apprehend Garrett Ashworth and the others involved. For how long? A few days, maybe a week. We're moving fast on this. Carmen thought about Diego and Lucia at home, worried about her, about Rafael who'd been texting her all day asking where she was, about her job at the Grand Obsidian, which she'd definitely lost by now after calling in sick and disappearing. What if I say no to protection? The FBI agent said bluntly. Then you're at risk. These people kill for a living, Miss Reyes. They're efficient, ruthless, and they don't leave witnesses. If they find out you took that notebook, they will come for you. Carmen's phone buzzed. A text from Rafael. Where are you? Kids are scared. Please come home. She showed the text to the agents. Can you at least protect my family, even if I don't take protection myself? We can station officers near your home. But, Miss Reyes, the safest thing for you and your family is to accept protective custody until this is resolved. Carmen made the hardest decision of her life. Okay, I'll do it, but I need to call my husband first, tell him what's happening. They let her call. Rafael was furious, terrified, supportive, and resigned all at once. Just come home safe, he said finally. Whatever it takes, come home safe. I will, Carmen promised, hoping it was true. The FBI moved Vanessa and Carmen to separate safe houses. Carmen spent 3 days in a small apartment in Boulder City, Nevada, with 2 federal marshals guarding the door. She wasn't allowed to leave, wasn't allowed to use her regular phone, could only contact her family through a monitored burner device. Diego and Lucia didn't understand why their mother was suddenly gone. Raphael tried to explain without terrifying them, but Carmen could hear the fear in their voices every time they called. "When are you coming home, Mama?" Lucia asked on the second night. "Soon, mija, very soon." But Carmen didn't know if that was true. On the third day, Agent Kozlowski came to the safe house with news. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "Garrett Ashworth didn't check out of the Grand Obsidian. He's still registered under a different name on the 20th floor. He's been in the hotel this entire time." Carmen's blood ran cold. "He knows the notebook is missing." "We have to assume so. The question is whether he knows you took it." Agent Kozlowski paused. "We pulled the security footage. You were seen entering room 1847 at 2:47 p.m. on the day in question. Your face is clearly visible." "So he knows." "If he reviewed the footage, yes, which means your family—" Carmen didn't let her finish. "Where are they? Are they safe?" "We have officers watching your apartment. Your husband and children are fine. But Ms. Reyes, we need to move them tonight. We're relocating your entire family to a secure location until this is over." "How long will that take?" "We're planning to arrest Ashworth tomorrow morning. We have enough evidence from the notebook to get a warrant. Once he's in custody, the immediate danger will be over, but the people he works for, the ones paying him, they're still out there. It might be weeks, even months, before we can guarantee your safety." Carmen felt her world crumbling. Weeks or months in hiding, no job, no income, her children's lives disrupted, their sense of security shattered, all because she decided to do the right thing. "I'm sorry," Agent Kozlowski said, and she sounded like she meant it. "I know this isn't fair. You did everything right, and now you're paying the price. But Carmen, if it helps at all, you've saved lives. Vanessa Montgomery would be dead right now if not for you, and the evidence you provided is going to put away people who've hurt dozens, maybe hundreds of victims. That matters." "Will it matter to my kids when they can't go to school?" Carmen asked bitterly. "Will it matter when we can't pay our rent because I lost my job?" Agent Kozlowski was quiet for a moment. "The FBI has a victim assistance program. We can help with temporary housing, living expenses, job placement after this is over. It's not perfect, but it's something." It wasn't enough, but it was all Carmen had. That night, Raphael, Diego, and Lucia were brought to a different safe house. Carmen was allowed to see them for the first time in 3 days. Lucia cried for an hour, clinging to her mother. Diego tried to be strong, asking questions about what was happening, trying to understand. Raphael just held Carmen, and she could feel how angry he was, not at her, but at the situation, at the unfairness of it all. "We'll get through this," Carmen whispered to him. "We will." "I know," Raphael said, but he didn't sound convinced. The next morning, September 26th, the date marked in the notebook beside Vanessa Montgomery's name, the FBI executed their raid. At 6 a.m., federal agents stormed 3 locations simultaneously: room 2015 at the Grand Obsidian Hotel, where Garrett Ashworth was staying under an alias, a private residence in Summerlin where his handler lived, and an office building downtown that served as a front for the trafficking operation. Agent Kozlowski called Carmen at 7:30 a.m. with an update. "We got him. Ashworth is in custody, but there's a complication." Carmen's heart sank. "What complication?" "Well, Ashworth had a partner, someone we didn't know about, and that partner is still at large. We found communications in Ashworth's room suggesting this partner was backup. In case Ashworth failed or got caught, the partner would complete the job." "Complete what job?" "Eliminating witnesses, including you." Carmen felt the room spin. "But you arrested him. You have the evidence. It's over." "It's not over until we find the partner, and we don't know who that is yet." Agent Kozlowski sighed. "I'm sorry, Carmen. You and your family need to stay in protective custody a little longer. We're working as fast as we can." "How much longer?" "I don't know." Carmen hung up and looked at her family: Raphael, Diego, Lucia, all of them trapped in this small safe house because she'd decided to pick up a notebook instead of looking away. For the first time since this nightmare began, Carmen wondered if she'd made the wrong choice. 5 more days passed, 5 days of living in limbo, of watching her children grow more anxious and withdrawn, of seeing Raphael's hope fade a little more each day. On the 6th day, Agent Yoon came to the safe house with unexpected news. "We know who the partner is," he said. "Her name is Phyllis Brennan. She's the housekeeping manager at the Grand Obsidian." Carmen felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. "Phyllis? My supervisor?" "She's been working with Ashworth for 2 years. She provided him with access to hotel rooms, covered up evidence, and helped identify potential witnesses who needed to be silenced. When you took that notebook, she's the one who told Ashworth to review the security footage. She's the one who identified you." Carmen thought back to every interaction she'd had with Phyllis, the dismissiveness when Carmen reported finding drugs, the casual cruelty in how she treated housekeeping staff, the way she always seemed to know things about guests that a manager shouldn't know. "Where is she now?" Carmen asked. "That's the problem. She disappeared the day we arrested Ashworth. We have a warrant out for her arrest, but she's gone underground. We're tracking her credit cards, her phone, her known associates, but until we find her, you're still at risk." Carmen felt something break inside her. "I can't do this anymore. My kids are falling apart. My husband is falling apart. I'm falling apart. How long are we supposed to live like this?" Agent Yoon's expression was sympathetic but firm. "As long as it takes. I'm sorry, Miss Reyes. I wish I had better news." That night, after the agents had left, Carmen sat alone in the bathroom of the safe house and let herself cry for the first time since this began. Quiet, desperate sobs that she muffled with a towel so her children wouldn't hear. She'd tried to do the right thing. She'd tried to save someone's life, and in return, her own life had been destroyed. Maybe Raphael had been right. Maybe this wasn't their fight. Maybe people like Carmen, immigrants, housekeepers, people without power or money or influence, maybe they were supposed to just keep their heads down and survive. Maybe that's all they could do. She thought about going to the agents and telling them she wanted to recant her statement, return the evidence, pretend this never happened. Would that even work? Could she put this genie back in the bottle? Probably not. She was in this now, whether she wanted to be or not. Carmen dried her eyes, looked at herself in the mirror, and saw a woman she barely recognized, exhausted, afraid, alone. But then she thought about Vanessa Montgomery, who was alive because Carmen had found that notebook. She thought about the victims of the trafficking ring who would get justice because of the evidence Carmen provided. She thought about what she would tell Diego and Lucia years from now about this moment. Would she tell them she gave up, or would she tell them she kept fighting even when it seemed hopeless? Carmen made a decision. She walked out of the bathroom, found Agent Kozlowski's contact in the burner phone, and sent a text. "I want to help you find Phyllis. Use me as bait if you have to. Let's end this." What would you do in Carmen's situation? Would you risk everything to stop a murder or protect your family by staying silent? Drop a comment with your honest answer. And if you're hooked on this story, smash that like button and hit subscribe, because what happens next is absolutely intense. Trust me, you won't believe how this ends. This is where everything came together, or fell apart. Agent Kozlowski called Carmen at 6 a.m. the next morning. "Are you sure about this?" "I'm sure," Carmen said, though her voice shook. The plan was simple and terrifying. Carmen would return to work at the Grand Obsidian Hotel. The FBI would leak information through back channels that Carmen was out of protective custody and back to her normal routine. Phyllis, who was presumably monitoring the situation, would see an opportunity to eliminate the witness who could testify against her. And when Phyllis made her move, the FBI would be waiting. "This is dangerous," Agent Kozlowski warned. "If anything goes wrong, if Phyllis suspects a trap, she could get panic and get violent. We'll have agents everywhere, but there's still risk." I understand, Carmen said, but if I don't do this, when does it end? Next week? Next month? Next year? I want my life back. My family needs their life back. Raphael was furious when Carmen told him. They argued for an hour, his voice rising with desperation. They're asking you to be bait, Carmen, to put yourself in danger so they can do their job. If I don't do this, we stay in hiding forever, Carmen said. Is that what you want? For our kids to grow up in safe houses, moving every few weeks, never feeling secure? Raphael had no answer for that. On October 8th, 15 days after Carmen found the notebook, she put on her housekeeping uniform for the first time in over 2 weeks and walked through the employee entrance of the Grand Obsidian Hotel. The other housekeepers stared at her like she'd returned from the dead. Maria, the young woman Carmen had been training, rushed over immediately. Dios mío, Carmen, where have you been? They said you quit. They said you were sick. No one knew anything. Family emergency, Carmen said, the lie tasting bitter. It's over now. I'm back. The shift supervisor, a man named Gordon, who'd been promoted when Phyllis disappeared, looked uncomfortable when Carmen reported for duty. We weren't expecting you back. Your position was filled. I never quit, Carmen said firmly. I was on emergency leave. Check the records. Gordon made a phone call, had a heated conversation with HR, and finally, reluctantly, put Carmen back on the schedule. You're on 18 and 19 today, same as before. Carmen took her cleaning cart and headed to the 18th floor, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. The FBI had agents posing as guests on the 18th, 19th, and 20th floors. Agent Nguyen was in room 1852, directly across from where Carmen had found the notebook. Agent Kozlowski was in the lobby, monitoring security cameras. 6 more agents were stationed throughout the hotel, dressed as tourists, business people, hotel staff. Carmen wore a wire taped to her chest, hidden under her uniform. Every word she spoke was being recorded and monitored. She cleaned 1801, 1803, 1805. Nothing happened. By 2 p.m., Carmen was beginning to think Phyllis wasn't coming. Maybe she'd fled the country. Maybe she'd realized it was a trap. Then Carmen's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Room 1847, now. Come alone or your family dies. Carmen's hands went cold. She looked up and down the hallway, empty. She pressed the button on her wire to signal the agents. I just got a text. She wants me in 1847. She's threatening my family. Through her earpiece, Agent Kozlowski's voice came through. We're moving into position. Do not go into that room alone. Wait for us. But Carmen was already walking toward 1847 because she knew something the FBI didn't. Phyllis Brennan didn't make empty threats, and if Carmen hesitated, if agents stormed the room first, Phyllis might have enough time to make a call, send a message, activate whatever backup plan she had for Raphael, Diego, and Lucia. Carmen reached room 1847. The door was propped open slightly with the security latch. She pushed it open and stepped inside. The room looked exactly as it had 15 days ago. Same furniture, same marble bathroom, same heating vent where Carmen had found the notebook that started all of this. Phyllis Brennan stood by the window, backlit by the afternoon sun streaming through the sheer curtains. She looked different, no longer the perfectly composed manager in her pantsuit and sensible heels. Her hair was unwashed, pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore jeans and a hoodie. And in her right hand she held a gun. Close the door, Phyllis said. Carmen didn't move. The FBI is in this hotel. They know I'm here. I know. That's why we're going to make this quick. Phyllis raised the gun, pointing it directly at Carmen's chest. You should have stayed out of this, Carmen. You were a good housekeeper, reliable, quiet. I thought you understood your place. My place? Carmen's voice steady despite the terror coursing through her. You mean invisible? Disposable? I mean smart enough to know when something isn't your business. Phyllis's hand was shaking slightly. "You had no idea what you were getting into when you took that notebook. The people I work for, the people Garrett worked for, they don't forgive and they don't forget. Do you know how many people had to die because of what you did?" "How many people died before I did anything?" Carmen shot back. "How many victims of the trafficking? How many witnesses you and Garrett silenced? Don't act like I'm the one who caused harm." Phyllis laughed, a bitter sound. "You think you're a hero? You're not. You're just another casualty. And when they find your body, it'll look like you came back to work, got depressed, and jumped from this window. Tragic suicide. The FBI will investigate, but they won't find anything. I'm very good at my job." "Then why are your hands shaking?" Carmen asked. Phyllis's jaw tightened. "Because killing you doesn't give me any pleasure. I'm not a monster. I'm just someone who understands how the world works. People like us," she gestured between herself and Carmen, "we're not the heroes of the story. We're the help, and the only way to survive is to stay quiet and take what we're given." "That's not surviving," Carmen said. "That's just existing, and I'd rather die fighting than live on my knees." Phyllis's finger tightened on the trigger. "Then you're about to get your wish." The door burst open. Agent Nguyen came through first, gun drawn, shouting, "FBI, drop the weapon!" Phyllis spun toward him, and for one terrible moment, Carmen thought Phyllis would fire. But instead, something crumbled in the woman's expression. The gun wavered. "Don't do it," Agent Nguyen said calmly, but commanding. "It's over, Phyllis. We have Garrett. We have the evidence. We have testimony from a dozen victims. Killing Carmen won't save you. It'll just add murder to your charges." "I'm already looking at life in prison," Phyllis said, her voice breaking. "What difference does one more body make?" "The difference," Agent Kozlowski said, entering behind Nguyen with her own weapon drawn, "is between dying in prison as a killer or living with the possibility of redemption. Put the gun down." Phyllis looked at Carmen, then at the agents, then at the gun in her hand. For a moment, Carmen saw something human in her eyes. Regret, maybe? Or just exhaustion? Then Phyllis set the gun down on the dresser and raised her hands. "It's over," she said quietly. Agent Nguyen moved in quickly, cuffing Phyllis, while Agent Kozlowski secured the weapon. Carmen stood frozen, her legs suddenly weak, the adrenaline that had kept her upright draining away all at once. Kozlowski caught her before she fell. "You're okay. You're safe. It's over." Carmen nodded, but couldn't speak, couldn't process that she was alive, that it was actually over. They led Phyllis out of the room in handcuffs. As she passed Carmen, she stopped. "You should have just cleaned the room and moved on," she said. Not angry, just sad. "I couldn't," Carmen replied, "because then I'd have to live with myself, and that's harder than anything you could have done to me." Phyllis didn't respond. The agents took her away. Carmen walked out of room 1847 for the last time, past her cleaning cart abandoned in the hallway, past the other housekeepers who'd gathered to watch the commotion, past the hotel guests recording everything on their phones. She walked out of the Grand Obsidian Hotel and didn't look back. Outside, in the bright October afternoon, Raphael was waiting with Diego and Lucia. The FBI had brought them as soon as Phyllis was under custody. Lucia ran to Carmen first, wrapping her arms around her waist and sobbing. Diego followed, trying to be strong but failing, tears streaming down his face. Raphael held them all, and they stood there on the Las Vegas Strip, a family that had survived something that should have destroyed them. "It's over," Carmen whispered. "It's really over."
So, what happened to Carmen Reyes after all this? The Grand Obsidian Hotel fired her 3 days after Phyllis's arrest, citing violation of guest privacy policies for taking the notebook. Carmen sued for wrongful termination. The hotel settled out of court for $850,000 and a public apology. It wasn't the millions Carmen would have gotten if the case went to trial, but it was enough. Enough to pay for Diego's college tuition, enough to move her family to a better neighborhood in Henderson, enough to give them the stability that had been ripped away. Garrett Ashworth was convicted on 17 counts, including conspiracy to commit murder, human trafficking, and racketeering. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he provided testimony that led to the arrest of 14 more individuals in the trafficking network, including 2 Las Vegas city officials, a hotel executive, and a prominent businessman. Phyllis Brennan pleaded guilty to conspiracy and received 25 years. In her statement to the court, she said, "I thought I was just doing my job. I thought looking away was the same as being innocent. I was wrong." Vanessa Montgomery completed her investigation and published a series of articles exposing the trafficking ring. Her reporting won the Pulitzer Prize for investigative journalism. In her acceptance speech, she said, "This award belongs to Carmen Reyes, a hotel housekeeper who had every reason to stay silent and chose to speak anyway. She's the real journalist here. I just wrote down what she uncovered." Carmen never went back to hotel housekeeping. Instead, she used part of her settlement to enroll in community college, studying criminal justice. She wanted to understand the system that had almost failed her and figure out how to make it better for people like her, people without power, without resources, without voices. Today, Carmen works as a victim advocate with the FBI's Las Vegas field office. She helps other witnesses navigate the system, supports them through the fear and uncertainty, and reminds them that their courage matters. Diego graduated from UNLV with an engineering degree. Lucia is now in her sophomore year, studying to be a social worker. Rafael still works construction, but the family no longer lives paycheck to paycheck. And every year on September 23rd, the day Carmen found the notebook, she takes a moment to think about the choice she made, the choice that cost her everything she thought mattered and gave her back something more valuable, the knowledge that she's someone who stands up when it matters. This story reminds us that heroism isn't about being fearless, it's about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. It's about understanding that silence protects the powerful and destroys the vulnerable. And it's about recognizing that sometimes the most ordinary people end up doing the most extraordinary things. Carmen Reyes didn't set out to be a hero. She was just a housekeeper doing her job. But when she found evidence of evil, she refused to look away. And that refusal, that simple, terrifying choice, saved lives. The people with the most power in any situation aren't always the ones with money or status or authority. Sometimes the most powerful person is the one who refuses to be complicit. The one who says, "Not on my watch." The one who understands that doing nothing is still a choice, and it's the wrong one. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the choices we all face when confronted with injustice, hit that subscribe button for more incredible true stories about courage, justice, and the power of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And drop a comment. What's the bravest thing you've ever done? When did you stand up when it would have been easier to stay silent? Because the world needs more people like Carmen Reyes. People who clean hotel rooms and save lives. People who risk everything for a stranger. People who understand that we're all responsible for each other. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and never underestimate the power of one person who refuses to look away.